So now we're in the swamp, and it's a little before dawn. And this is the swamp that the elephant Gonwan is at. And Gonwan has spent the night in the swamp while waiting, like the hawk had told him to do, to wait for the deer people to come, and the whole group with the Spider Woman that has Vestibula and Lee and Crackler, and that whole party that's with the deer people now, and they've slept with the deer people while Gonwan has been told by the hawk to not disturb them, that they would come meet the elephant, and then they would move east together to go meet Acricorn, the Sea Goat King. And the elephant has been spent the night in this swamp, and the elephant's patiently waiting, but it's a smelly old swamp, and this isn't down in the valleys where the slums are with the deer. There's not a lot of deer here. The elephant is told to go here because he wouldn't disturb any of the deer and this kind of thing, and it's just in between these mountains that's nearby where the deer chiefs are, and there's these spent the night in this swamp with these toads, and there's these toads that have been talking to him all night long, just chatting his head off all night long. So the elephant didn't get any rest. He's just listening to rap, 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 rap. These toads are just chatting all night long about, and they're telling him about the deers, and about the swamp, and about the mountain range, and how you know nobody pays attention to the toads, right? Is sort of the toads are sort of like but they're not complaining. They're just pointing this out, and it's not even a passive aggressive thing. They're just like, we're the toads, nobody pays attention to us, but we really know what's going on in this swamp and in these mountains, and down there in those valleys. The toads really know what's going on, and well. We're not even recognized really as a people, but we are the toad people, and nobody really pays attention to us, and because they're not a reptilian, they're not a lizard, they're really proud of their sort of you know amphibious nature, that they're of the water, and of the land, and that they know the story of the forest in ways it isn't listened to, and so the elephant is sort of getting this like, okay, there's these toad people who don't feel listened to. What's the point, Um, and the toad people say, well, we know about this meeting that they're gonna have and this sort of thing, and there's really no point other than that, you might as well bring a toad to be represented where everyone's supposed to be represented here at this meeting. So why don't you bring a toad with you? See what the and the elephant's like, I wasn't sent here to get a toad. You've been talking to me all night long. Why do you think I'm gonna take you home? You're not letting me get any sleep. Why do you think you're gonna have me bring you? The Goat King doesn't want me to bring back a toad. Wants me to bring back a ram. And the toad says, well, we're amphibious. We're creatures of the water, and creatures of the land, just like the crabs are. And so, Goat King's a great friend of the crab. Wouldn't it just be fair and balanced to bring a toad to meet with the Sea Goat King, since he's the king of the sky, and frogs can and toads can jump, so we can jump, and he may not have seen many toads fly, but we may have something to talk to him about flight. And so the elephants are like, flight? Well, I'm a flying elephant, and I give respect to the Goat King for giving me that. And you're saying that you're of the water and that you might be of the sky. So sure, fair enough. I'll bring you there. And he's having this conversation going on. So the sun comes up, and in come people. The people come walking in with the Deer King Boosh, and Boosh is there with his mate Dee, and her name's Anne Dee. And D is she just goes by D, and this is the mate of Boosh, and this is the deer chief's female deer, that they have this large family of deer that are well respected, and they're the offspring of D and Boosh are leaders of the various communities that are in between the higher up mountain communities of deer and the slums, and they're sort of working for the deer families. As the biggest deer family is the Boosh and D family, So we meet deer D as they wake up at dawn, and we they come in to meet the elephant because the hawk has led them to meet the elephant. It's like, hey, let's go as soon as we can, get back, and they're gonna have to get on a big path because they're or on a big road. Actually, they're gonna have to come out to a cleared out road. So the whole troop of uh D and um Vestibula, the ram, and Crackler, and Amla, and Majra, the crab mamas, and the Lee and John. And so Lee and John are humans from down south, and they're like wowed by this whole journey that they're going through. And Lee is in contact with Eel. Eel is the his doppelganger again. And so Lee starts saying, I'm getting a really good sense of my connection with Lee and or with Eel, and Eel is saying, it's going to be a good idea for me to be able to tune into all these different languages, even though I know the crab language, but that way I can communicate with everyone. And so when they wake up in the morning before they go to meet the elephant to get on track to go meet the Acacorn, the Sea Goat King, and everybody else on the East Coast. Um, Lee and John and uh, Vestibula, they all have some more of that snake, the rainbow snake stuff, so that they can really hear and understand, you know, um, the Spider Woman and Crackler and the Mama Crabs and everybody. They can get a better tune into all of the language, and they can also be more tuned into the way that the deer people work with lots of different ways of communicating with lots of different members of the forest, that the humans are realizing that, both in the southern area where there's this strange sort of communication pattern that goes on, up in the northern area where there are deer, the deer have this ability to communicate with lots of different creatures, like the various insect groups and the birds and everything. So they come in and they meet the toads, and the elephant's like, finally, all right, I've been hanging out with these toads all night, and now it's here we are at dawn. Let's get going. And one of the toads, his name is Frederick. He rides on top of the elephant because he's convinced the elephant, hey, I want to fly. I'm a toad. You spend all night with me, and I may have kept you up all night talking toad to you all night long, but the sea goat's going to be happy to be able to hear from me, and you'll get to see why. And so they head out down the side of the mountain, out of the swamp, and they have to go down, through the valleys, and they start round the deer king, or the deer chief, sorry, Bush, starts sort of, like shaking his antlers and making and what he's doing is with these antlers is that he can talk just by shaking his head around, and he can just talk with the skulls. Remember, there's a snake skull and an eagle skull in his antlers, and he can just sort of like, shake his antlers around in a certain way, and it rattles, and he can talk like almost like a more sophisticated version of like a rattlesnake, and it can make all these different sounds like the scratching of the ants on the sticks, and like the scratching of the that the wolves used down south on the sides of the trees and stuff. And the crab language, the clicking sort of language. He can speak all these different languages by shaking his antlers around, and so can a lot of these really well respected deer chiefs, and so the aristocracy of the deer society up in the mountains, that sort of like wants to steward their slums better, that are down below in the valleys. They do these, they put these trinkets of various sort of skulls of old animals, or various other things that they have, and they put them in their antlers, and they can communicate with them. And then as they're the whole group of them is moving through, and they're sort of gathering. They've talked to the owl people, and the owl people are now hooted. There's owl hoots. They're moving through the forest with them, and just to tell the story of the owl, so that the owls all know that they're gonna be able to meet up at this meeting as well. And likewise, crows. The crow people will be represented. Um, And let me talk a little bit about what's east. So remember on the to the west of the on the northern part of the continent. So on the eastern part of the continent, in the northern area is a lot of the humans and their advanced civilization with their mining operations and that sort of thing up there. And then as you get further south, you get more of the gator people and the reptilians and the crustaceans. And in the central area of the northern part is where all of the the deer mountain ranges and the deer valleys and remember Deer Park and the Great Big Deer Run, which is the name of the river. It's just Deer Run that runs south to the canal and empties all the sludge from the Deer Mountains out there. But on the west of the mountains is really mostly run by bird people and various other sort of deer people, and there's not as many reptilians out there. They're smaller. There's some salamander people out there and frog people and toad people, but not big gator, not big gator people, and there's no iguanas out there. It's primarily run by the deer people, whereas or I'm sorry, by the bird people, and there's deer people out there to the west as well. But it there that area is mostly stewarded by a wide variety of lots of different kinds of birds that talk all of these different languages of the forest, and they move around the berries from the trees, and they have this very wonderful forests that are mostly run by the birds, as opposed to the mining operations that are further east that are run mostly by the humans. There's a little bit of the backstory there with the geography and the various groups of people in the areas. Um, so Bush is moving through this area, and he's very proud of himself as a deer who's not just a herd deer, right? Because there are no herders of the deer, right? There's various people who are interacting with them, but they're not domesticated deer by any means, right? There's no humans are not domesticating them, and they're not a herd of deer that's having mass predators. Instead, they're this strange sorts of deer that are learning to integrate with crab people and learning these advanced languages and this sort of thing. Uh, and so the Bush and Dee are very proud of their family and the fact that they are independently successful, integrative deer people who have friends that are not deer people, and no one is hurting them. So they're just traveling with just those two deer are traveling there. They've left their daughters and sons to manage the mountains while they go travel east to meet the Sea Goat King. And then something kind of scary happens, and the scorpion wakes up. And Bush says, Kashka needs to eat. And there's this, and everyone, not the spider people knew that this is a live scorpion on Bush's back, but you know, people kind of get scared. They're like, oh my God, that's a live scorpion. They thought it was an ornamental thing that Bush was wearing, but no, they find out, no, this is sort of like a symbiotic relationship that Bush has with this scorpion dude that rides on Bush's back, um, and so we start finding out that Bush has this very deep addiction to, and it's part of what gives Bush his power as a deer, as an advanced deer. So we're sort of getting this perspective of what does it mean to be this these different sorts of evolutionary tracks that the crab people are offering through their own sense of having evolved ecosystem that they carry around as a representative of an ecosystem, or presenting this ecosystem, that these deer are in this their consciousness expansion program where they have these addictions to various things that are made by snakes and insects and creatures from the sea, and various plants that are mixed together in different ways and processed and extracted these various things from them. And so this scorpion that has been riding on Bush this whole time actually has a very symbiotic relationship with Dee, or I'm sorry, with Bush, in that Bush has the stinger of the scorpion actually plugs in and hooks up to and injects injects Bush with various molecules, including the molecule. This is a highly evolved scorpion, remember, and this was one of the scorpions that provided the genetics to the um, hybridization of the colony. Remember the ant colony that's inside of the machine? It's really an ant colony with hybridized ants that have, they're stinging ants that have also scorpion genetics and baby crab genetics. And so they can speak the crab language, and they can also speak all these different languages that through using this molecule that this bigger, larger scorpion that rides on top of Bush is injects into the deer so that the deer can, understand everybody. And but also it has more than just that. It has a whole uh, pharmaceutical cornucopia that this scorpion is able to make. A wide variety of different molecules, sort of on demand for Bush, depending on how he needs to modify his consciousness for different operations that he has psychically with different creatures around him for communication purposes, and then also in trance states so that he can enter into trance states and be able to communicate with members of his family, his ancestors, um, and then also get messages, from the different psychic networks that the scorpion people sort of have this tap into hive minds where the scorpions are very independent and they each have their own set of secrets, but they also have this ability to talk to different insect groups and know what's up with those different hives and what's going on with them. So when Bush says Kashka needs to eat, and Kashka is the scorpion, Kashka wakes up, and this dude, she's nasty and is just eyeing everybody, but then Bush says just let her go out into the forest, she'll find what she needs. Nobody's being threatened here. Kashka will come back when she's eaten. And so they all wait, on they've gotten to their path where they're moving through this big road, the main road that goes through. They can talk to all the birds along the way and get everybody out there to the east. And they wait, and Kashka goes out into the forest and goes down into one of the valleys. And uh, the ram, um, Vestibula, speaks up and says, "What does she eat? What does Kashka eat?" Um, and Bush says, "Well, this is one of the best scorpions we've ever met. Kashka is a very, very deep, obviously symbiotic friend of mine. Lives on my back most of the time. And this scorpion who I carry around, and as a not a servant, but as a fellow who offers me benefits, and then who I offer benefits to, to both to her, Kashka, and to the whole Scorpion people as appreciation for what they do and their service that they provide to us." And Bush starts explaining, she eats deer. Kashka eats deer and eats the filth, eats the deer that are down there in the valley and that are so addicted to these substances that they're basically they're gonna die anyways. They can't. They have no family, or they've abandoned their families, and they're not integrating with our society, and they're not helping clean things up, and they're making a bigger mess. So, because our deer people have been allowed to overproduce, and we have a lot of basically negligent deer citizens in our regions, because we haven't had predators. We do have some relationships with some of these predators that otherwise are not interested in deer, but they're integrating with us, to help us by killing off members of our own species who have been abandoned and aren't interested in integration. So we're allowing our integration with members beyond our species to like the scorpion people to just do some help out and just clean up so that they're not being as wasteful and overproducing. And this is kind of shocking to the people who are hearing this story, because they are all under the assumption that the scorpion people are horribly evil and that they have all these secrets and they do all these experiments with these different animals that are really sick and this sort of thing. But they didn't know that the deer people had been actually accepting them in and as something other than humans who are really have more of a much deeper moral code than the scorpions and usually wouldn't be picking up deer people. So the deer people don't like the idea of humans picking them off, and they would rather have humans making fires for them and helping them by giving them deer skulls and or sorry, not deer skulls, but maybe deer skulls, right? Because if a scorpion goes and eats a deer that's being nasty and not contributing and is contributing to the ecological disasters, um, it would be kind of an odd and sick seeming thing for then a deer to be wearing another deer skull that says, "Hey, look, I'm responsible for helping clean up this mess by taking out these deer who are basically just polluting the land and overproducing." This is a very strange moment that's kind of eerie there as they're, trying to get out of these. They're on this main road that avoids the valleys, and it kind of goes along the edge of the mountains back down to the canal region. They're going to get back down to the canal region, and they can't all fly on the elephant. So the elephant is with them, and the elephant's like, "All right, I'm not going to fly. I'm going to stay here on the land and keep everybody on track so that we can get back to meet the Goat King in time." And so then, Kashka comes back out and is like, "All right, I've been fed. Ready for a nap." And the big scorpion dude crawls on top of Bush's back. And before he does, or before she does, Kashka is a female scorpion. Uh, Before Kashka climbs up there, goes over to D and gives D a stinger injection of some of the whatever because the remember Kashka can make on demand from this whole pharmaceutical cornucopia of different stuff that the scorpion people have engineered over the centuries, and gives D this injection of stuff that gives her this surge of energy and clarity, and again this ability to communicate with everyone more coherently. And then they all go down to the canal region, and they don't get as close to the canals because they don't want to have to breathe the funk, and they're not going to try to risk going on the boats again. This whole caravan of various peoples that are going to go meet the Goat King on the East Coast. And remember, they don't have to go all the way down to the canal because they're gonna meet with the Gator people, and the Northerners, the Northern humans, are gonna send down a saucer with EL and meet them up here very soon. So we're getting closer now to the big business meeting with the Northerners and the Deer people, and all of the Rams are going to come, and we've got the Sky Ram is traveling east with the big caravan now too, and her name is Georgia Leaf, and Georgia Leaf is going to be the Sky Ram. And remember, I was spelling out the Seagoat's plan for the four land rams, and the sky ram they've given to the deer, because again the deer are going to learn to fly during the age of the ram, and one of the ram there's going to be a herd of flying rams that are going to get to learn with the Goat King, and so now Lee is talking to them as they're going close, because Lee, remembers, in chronic contact with Eel, and Eel is in contact with crab people up with the Northerners, and also with the Gators have this machine that they're going to bring down that's got the replacement. And so Lee is sort of this point of contact for a lot of psychic activity through Eel. And so Lee starts explaining how he knows a little bit about, because remember the Northerners have flight, right? They have these flying discs that don't have landing gear because they haven't been given the landing gear. And so Lee is spelling out how the reason the flying discs don't have landing gear is because they actually got the flying discs from the serpent people. And so that what they're being told is that the serpent people actually up at the very northern regions near the North Pole, the serpent people have their craft, or actually it's a spaceport that has small pods that it can send out to its various areas where it's welcome for the space traveling serpent people. So we have space traveling cat people down south, and we have space traveling serpent people up north. Is what we're hearing now from Lee, and he's saying how the ram Georgilfina is going to bring or Georgia Leaf, sorry, funny name, it's a new name to me. Uh, Georgia Leaf is this female sky ram. Georgia Leaf is going to bring a new sky pact between the various groups that fly. Because remember, we've got the flying monkeys, the flying sea goats, the flying elephants, all of the bird people, of course, and we've got flying humans, at least certainly in the north. The Southerners don't have that technology yet, but Lee is saying that because he is a Southerner, he's saying he's learning from EL that Lee is going to be the ambassador, the new ambassador to the Southern people, or for rather from the Southern, an ambassador between the Southern and Northerners, because he has a psychic connection with the new leader of the Northerners, who is a Southerner, or a replication of Lee, and that he's going to be able to have a psychic communication. So he's going to be a leader in the South after this whole business deal goes down and or up, really, because it's about getting flight for everyone. And that the Skyram is going to be part of what leads the way for a new age of flight for the deer. That the Sea Goat King is going to offer the deer the ability to fly without having to eat their ancient um, red cap that was a special kind of red cap that would grow on top of only deer poop and but it would have special properties, but it would allow deer to fly, but only deer. And so the Eel is explaining, because that he's heard from the crab people, Eel has heard from the crab people up north the sea goat's plan for the flight operations, and that they're really aiming for an integration so that there is flight where the felines in the south, right, the jaguars, once they leave, they're no longer feeling that there's sort of a militant uh, monopoly on interstellar trade that's being maintained by the snake people. So we're finding out that the snake people, at least the far northern serpent people, they have a strange relationship with the government of the northerners, and that relationship is one that has the northerners and the humans in the north getting technology from space traveling serpent people, including these discs that they have that they can fly around, that they don't have landing gear, they don't have the ability to leave the orbit of the Earth, they don't have an interstellar ability, but it's this technology that the snake people have given to the northerners. And so, once again, we're getting this layer peeling away of people getting their minds blown by what's actually happening on their planet that different groups of people know about, but that not everyone gets the full picture of, but that eventually we're going to get this great disclosure event that when they get to meet the sea king, the sea goat king. So they're getting further and further east, and they're running into lots of iguana people in the forest now, because they're getting closer and closer to the east coast. And there's all these iguana people and various birds that are, gathering these different herbs and berries and eating them, and they're greeting them as they come in. And it's like, oh, the owls told us to expect you. This is wonderful that you're entering. The Sea Goat King is preparing to meet our gator cousins who are coming in with a large catch from the coast. So you'll be ready for. They'll have a great meal for you, and you'll get to get down to business when you get to the coast. We'll be there soon.